Welcome back, everybody, to the Spread Option Podcast here on the CFB Nation channel. With me, as always, my guy, Vince. I'm Trev, and we have another full slate of college football to talk to you about. It's finally, this is weird. We talked about this on the Irish Breakdown show earlier today, Vince, but you and I are both Notre Dame fans. College football has been on our TVs now for about 20 days, and Notre Dame has played once.
One time.
And so this has been a weird start to the season, but I feel like we're back on track. Week 0 is further and further behind us.
Thank goodness.
We're getting back onto a normal schedule. Thank goodness. Happy Thursday, though, Vince. How you doing, man?
Hey, happy Thursday to you as well. Be watching, obviously there's a game on tonight. There's a couple games on tomorrow, of which I was tempted to play with a little bit. I'm not going to lie. We'll get to that here in a little bit. There's some tempting lines, in my opinion, tomorrow night, which is a Friday night, which, by the way, I'm just going to put this out there because we've talked about it, and you and I haven't talked about it. Brian and I have talked about it. Friday night is reserved for high school football. I do not like any college games on Friday. It takes away from the high school game. That's my personal opinion. I'm very biased being a high school football coach or former high school football coach. I just don't like it. Doesn't mean I won't bet on it. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Gosh, Vince, this petition from you is getting mighty long. We got no Friday games. We got to switch up week 0. We're going to have a laundry list of stuff to talk about to the king of college football here at the end of the season. That's for sure.
I'm just saying. I mean, I've got a lot of demands. All right. I've got a lot of demands, and it's just the way it is. So, yeah.
Hey, I get it. I get it, man. I appreciate it. Well, listen, you guys know how we're getting down today. We're going to go over hit or miss in part 1. We're going to talk about some of our bets from last week. Which ones hit, which ones missed. We're going to go over our record. Vince is sitting pretty in one of the categories, and he's looking to keep that streak alive going into this week. Part 2, we're going countdown. We have 4 games that we're going to break down. We're talking big 3, 2-player props, and then 1 keep away. And as always, we're talking locks and drops of the week, and then we're going to tie a bow on everything, and we're going to talk dogs of the week. This is going to be a really good show. I'm excited to dive into everything today. But unfortunately, when we kick off hit or miss with the Iowa State game, we talked about 2 different player props, and we went 0 for 2 in the Iowa State game, Vince. And let me start off by saying, Rocco Becht, you let me down, buddy.
Seriously. We went back to the Rocco Becht well, and he couldn't pick up another 5.5 yards. Come on, man. You're killing me here, Smalls.
I know it. His over-under was set at 16.5. That missed by 5. I mean, he had 11 rushing yards at the end. That's just things you hate to see. The things you hate to see. And then Iowa's running back, Terrell Washington. We wanted his over-under at 55.5. You think about it, right? It's Iowa. They run the football. Well, apparently they just decided to not do that against the Iowa State Cyclones because Terrell Washington Jr. was not close to his 55.5. He ended the game with 8 yards. So he was closer to 0 than he was 55.5, which is just upsetting.
It's very upsetting because I feel like you could just fall forward and get 8 yards. But ugly night for him. And like you said, you think Iowa, you think running the rock. We were absolutely let down on that one. So this is a prime example of the numbers lie at times, and we dive into the numbers, we look at the trends, all of those things. And sometimes it just doesn't happen, man. Like, it just doesn't happen. So that's what happened in this game. 0 for 2. 0 for 2.
The life of a bettor. But also the life of a bettor is the comeback, Vince. And in the next game, we talked about Baylor and SMU, where we went 2-0 in our player props. Sawyer Robertson, the quarterback for Baylor, we took his over at 280.5 passing yards, and he made up for the lack of rushing yards that Terrell Washington wanted to get because Sawyer Robertson ended the game with 440 passing yards. That game was nuts. I mean, it went into double overtime. It was 48-45 final score. That thing lived up to the hype.
That's video game numbers, 440 passing yards. And I don't care that they went into overtime. I get it. But there's not a lot of yards to get in overtime. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, he got the vast majority of those numbers during regulation. So, 440, well over the 280.5.
Sure was. Flipping the coin over to the other team, the SMU Mustangs, Romello Brinson has emerged as Kevin Jennings' new wide receiver 1. We also took his over of 54.5 receiving yards after posting up over 100 yards in their season opener. And he followed that performance up with a 126-yard performance against Baylor. Romello Brinson is starting to look like a lock to get at least 80 yards.
Wow.
I would say. I think that's pretty safe.
Yeah, I like his numbers. Obviously, he's a WR1 for this offense, and so you're gonna want to look at his numbers every week. And if as long as they don't get too crazy high, like an 85, 9, like I'd still stay away from it at that point. But like if you're looking at a 54 or a 60, something along those lines, I think that's a take for the over.
Agreed completely. Moving on to the next game that we talked about. We only covered 3 games last week because the week 2 slate was a little bit lackluster.
Yeah,
I would say. I think this week is going to be a lot better. But we were talking about Vince's second favorite team, the Michigan Wolverines, traveling on the road down in Norman. They were taking on the Oklahoma Sooners. The first player prop we talked about, Vince, was John Mateer anytime touchdown, and that ended up hitting for us.
That kid had a game. I think it's a bit of a John Mateer coming out party this year so far. Oklahoma obviously has a bit of a meat grinder schedule ahead of them, but if I remember correctly, anyway, he looks like a very, very, very good college quarterback. We'll see if that translates obviously to the next level, but he is going to be a stat gatherer, I believe, this year. So he's another one that you're going to want to pay attention to.
Agreed. If I was in a college football fantasy league, I would probably look at picking up John Mateer.
Yes.
That's 100% for sure. One person that I don't think that I will be picking up if I was in a college football fantasy
the $3 million man.
Quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines, Bryce Underwood. We took his over at 191.5 passing yards. Reason for that is in their season opener against the New Mexico Lobos, who we may or may not be talking about later on in this show. He had 250 passing yards, Vince, and that was the first time a Michigan quarterback passed for over 240 yards since J.J. McCarthy did it against Penn State in 2023. Well, Mr. Underwood let us down, and he finished the game with 143 passing yards, and he went 9 of 24.
Listen, it is like there's like my bad. Like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, you know what I mean? Like that whole thing. I'm staying as far away from Bryce Underwood numbers as I possibly can moving forward. I don't trust the offense. I don't trust Bryce Underwood as a true freshman, pinning, all of the hopes and dreams of the Michigan faithful on this kid. It's a lot of pressure. He didn't really come out and show us very much on the road against a team with a pulse. Obviously, they're not going to have to worry about that against Central Michigan, I wouldn't imagine. But I would stay away from Bryce Underwood and any kind of numbers props here moving forward. And it's not just because of him specifically. It's also because I don't trust this offense, and I don't trust this offense, under this head coach and Sherrone Moore. And he's not even going to be there for the next 2 games. But I just don't like this offense. It's not one to pick up a bunch of numbers.
I understand that completely. These are just some of the things that start to get weeded out after week 1 and week 2.
Exactly.
And it's going to start making more sense as we get down the road. So basically what I'm hearing is we're going to start batting 1,000 here in week 9 or week 10. So no pressure on us, right?
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
Pressure on us.
Hey, before we move on, I want to throw up a comment here from Brandon. He goes, I just want to know if y'all started this show so you could explain to your wives you have a reason to gamble. This is where I plead the fifth because I'm not going to get in trouble. I'll just leave it at that, Brandon.
Brandon, I'm pretty sure my wife is one of the live people watching in this. I don't know if she's actually in the chat. So, no, this is something that we wanted to do to help grow the CFB Nation podcast in affiliation with the Irish Breakdown podcast. And this is just something that Vince and we talked about over the phone quite a bit last season. So we thought we might as well do it, I guess, in front of a live audience. And that is why, and appreciate the love and support from the lady 2 rooms away. And that is why we started it, Brandon. That is definitely why we started it, for sure. Vince, let's talk some locks of the week.
Yes,
and sir. You had a brilliant week, my friend. You had a brilliant week. On the other hand, I caught a little bit of the bad juju here. My lock of the week was Ole Miss minus 10.5 over Kentucky, and that missed. I was actually watching the game with my father-in-law, who is a Kentucky fan.
Oh.
And I had to kind of, I guess, watch the game a little bit more reserved and not root for the Rebels as much as I would have liked to.
I mean, they still won. It just wasn't
did.
Convincing, which was the basis for the lock, which Sound reasoning. It was sound reasoning, but the Rebels let you down, basically, is what happened.
They did. They did let me down. And to some piece, they did get their revenge from losing down at Ole Miss last season. But I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a resounding victory, especially considering the week before Ole Miss put up 70 points. Yeah. They did not beat Kentucky by 11. They beat them by a touchdown. But Vince, redeem us. Lock of the week. How'd you do?
Yeah, man. So I took Illinois, who's favored by 2.5 over the Dukies. And Illinois came to play because they won 45-19. And I'm still very much not convinced in Duke. Now, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. And I was kind of in the middle. Like, I didn't know that Duke was going to be that bad. And I didn't realize Illinois was that good. People have been saying how good Illinois is going to be. They kind of proved a little something last week with this big win. And I believe it was on the road at Duke as well. 45-19. So definitely hit the 2.5. They definitely won by more than 2.5. So that was an easy lock for me. And that was a win, which I needed a win because that's my first one of the season. So I'm 1-2 in my locks. But it was a big one. I'll take it.
Just imagine if you would have bet alternate spread Illinois at -26.
Oh my goodness. I could have been rolling in the dough. That would have been my walking papers from Irish Breakdown. Just no.
Oh my goodness. We're off the rails.
Yeah, we're off the rails, baby.
We're off the rails.
I'm just obviously joking.
Oh,
but that was a good win. I'll take it. So our next category though is drop of the week. So Trev, this one's highlighted in green. So this is a good one for you.
Yes, it was. And I'm going to have to start getting a little bit more specific around my drops of the week, but I talked about staying away from the big three of the Army and Kansas State game because it was we just don't know what Kansas State was going to be.
Man.
And I am now erring more on the side of, look, we got a lot of questions in other shows about who's going to be, this year's letdown and I did not have Kansas State on that bingo card, but they lost to Army.
Mm-hmm.
Army ended up winning that game 24-21. It might be a little too bold of a statement, even though Kansas State has only played 3 games. I think their season's done. I don't know how you bounce back from this. I mean, you still have the bulk of conference play in front of you. On the bright side, they are only still 0-1 in the Big 12, so they could go on a run, but it's not looking great. They are on the road against Arizona this week, and I didn't think Arizona was going to be much preseason. I thought this was going to be chalked up to a win, but nonetheless, my drop of the week was secure as long as you guys stayed away from the big three against Army and Kansas State.
Yeah, we may be bringing up Kansas State a little bit later in the show, so stay tuned for that. My drop of the week was to stay away from the big three of Oklahoma State and Oregon. Oregon just absolutely blew the doors off of Oklahoma State, 69-3. So, I mean, if you took Oregon on the money line, I think it was like -7,000 or something along those. Like, it was ridiculous. There was no benefit in taking in taking Oregon on the money line. It just, the spread was big, which ended up hitting, but who knew that they were going to win by 66 points? So Oklahoma State had 9 first downs the entire game and went 4 of 16 on third down and had 211 total yards of offense. Oregon had 631 yards of offense, Trevor. 631. That's a good 3-week stretch for some teams. Okay.
Night.
So that was just an absolute shellacking, which is why we were talking about someone's job on another show brought to you by Irish Breakdown. So, but yeah, that one was just a stay away. And it's a good thing that you did, because that was just, especially if you're an Oklahoma State fan. So we both hit on our drop of the week, Trev, which is great.
We sure did. But like betting always does, I have to get brought back down to earth and talk about my dog of the week. And my dog of the week was Kennesaw State to cover. They were 35.5-point dogs on the road against the Hoosiers. And in week one of the game, good night. In week one of the season, IU played Old Dominion, and I think they won by 12.
Yeah, it was ugly.
It wasn't a good-looking game, but in typical Signetti fashion, they poured it on late. They were running 2-minute drill and having their starting quarterback in at the end of the game to throw passing touchdowns to win 56-9. So they won by 47. Should have known that Sig was going to come out and run up the score after an underwhelming performance against Old Dominion. But you live and you learn, and hindsight is always 20/20.
IU is just a kind of a mystery, to be perfectly honest with you. And we'll talk about them a little bit later on as well. My dog of the week, I went back to the Penn State well, and they were 42.5-point favorites over FIU. Look, Penn State shut them out. It was 34-0, but that means the spread was 34. So if you took FIU to cover at 42.5, you win, baby. Ding, ding, ding. Take it. That's another win for dogs of the week for me. Penn State never seems to let me down when I bet against them, which is beautiful. So that might be a trend that you see moving forward for me. But I'm 2-0 you in picking against Penn State. So I like it. And I'll probably go back to that well at some point this season.
Well, there we go. Our guy Vince is 3-0 on the season in dogs of the week. That is very, very impressive, my friend. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Other records that we have, player props. We're still batting 500. We have 10 hits and 10 misses, which again, for betting purposes, is pretty solid. And if you play your cards right, you could be 10-0 for the player props that you follow us on. Who knows? Hopefully we're going to keep that streak alive.
Right.
Locks of the week, I dropped to 1-2. Vince is, I believe you're up to 1-2 now.
Yes.
I believe.
In my locks. Yep.
In locks of the week, I have dropped to 1-2 in my dogs of the week. This is going to be a big bounce back week for your boy. So here's hoping that all the fine research that I did is going to pay off here by Sunday. And Vince, like we've talked about, undefeated in dogs of the week.
It's a lot of pressure going into week 4 or show 4, undefeated. So like I don't know which way I'm going to go with my dog of the week. Like I've read. Before I just kind of go with the gut, what I think. And now it's like I'm really putting a lot of thought into this. And so I'm a little nervous about which way. And just a little peek behind the curtain. I've got 2 down there in our outline. I'm not sure which one I'm going to go with yet. We're going to see how the show plays out. Now, maybe I'll give you both. I don't know. We'll see.
Vince, this is what I like about you, man. You're on a heater. So you're going to give us 2 dogs of the week.
I might.
This is what I'm talking about. Our guy, Vince, could be 5-0. In his dogs of the week after only doing 4 dogs. Look at this guy. Now you're just showing off.
I know, right?
He's just showing off. Well, listen, folks, getting into part 2, the countdown. We have 4 games that we're going to cover. And game 1, the number 12 Clemson Tigers at Georgia Tech. Now, this is going to be a very intriguing matchup. The big 3, spread, money line, over, under. Clemson's the favorite in this game. They're favored by 3.5. Here's something that's interesting, and I went through and I updated these right before the show started because we know how much lines start to move on Thursday night.
Yep.
Clemson's favored in this game, but to take their spread, it's at plus 100. Thought that was interesting. I've never seen. So they're
usually
very
like
confident.
Minus 100, right? I mean, that's usually about or minus 110, something along those lines. Yeah.
Yep. I have very rarely seen a team favored where taking their spread is plus.
Yeah.
And I thought that was extremely, extremely interesting. And then the over-under for this game is set at 51.5. Vince, this is a weird matchup, man.
It is a weird matchup. And to your point, I was looking at a different site, and there was, I believe, the reason that it's plus money right now is there's a lot of money coming in on Georgia Tech, and which makes sense. Like I said, I was looking at another site, and it was like 60% of the people think that Georgia Tech is going to win this game outright. And so I have a feeling there's a lot of money coming in on the Georgia Tech side. So they're trying to entice people to bet on the Clemson side of things, which is why they made this plus money. Because you got to remember, the folks in Vegas, they want to make some money. And at the very least, they want to break even. So they're trying to balance out the spreadsheet a little bit because I think there's a lot of money coming in on the Yellow Jackets.
That makes sense. Clemson needed a 17-point third quarter to beat Troy at home.
Yeah, very underwhelming performance against Troy. Not the men of Troy, just Troy. And Troy is not a great football team right now, and they gave Clemson all that they could handle at Clemson. So I'm going to get a little deeper into this matchup in my lock of the week. But right now, I'll just say this is a very intriguing matchup.
100%. Could not agree more. Well, let's talk some player props, Vince. First one that we're going to talk about. I love Haynes King over 48.5 rushing yards. It was announced earlier this week that he is cleared to go. And if there's one thing that we know about Haynes King, That kid can move the chains with his legs. His over-under right now is set at 48.5 rushing yards. Love the over. He rushed for 156 yards against Colorado on the road in the opener. And if you're familiar with Haynes King, you know how he used his legs against Georgia last year, against Miami last year. Now, he's not at 100%, which is going to lead into the keep away here. But I really like him for over 48.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's a good one. He wants to run the ball, and I think he will run the ball. Even if Georgia Tech doesn't win this game, I still think he'll quote unquote get his, especially on the ground. And so I like that one as well. I like the over 48.5. What do you think about Adam Randall? Anytime touchdown for Clemson.
Yep, he is Clemson's starting running back. He scored a rushing touchdown in the first 2 games of the season. Georgia Tech has allowed 8 rushing touchdowns in their last 5 games going back to 2024. I believe. Nope, thinking of a different game. But with that being said, Caden Salter, the starting quarterback for Colorado, when they played, he had a rushing touchdown against them. I think Georgia, when they played, had a handful of rushing touchdowns. So the interior of their defensive line isn't stout in Georgia Tech's. And so I think Clemson is going to need to do everything that they can to try to establish a run game. That was one of the things that let them down against Troy. They have Cade Klubnik. They have, Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore. Antonio Williams is going to be back for this game. But with that offensive line and how experienced they are up front, I think they're going to try to establish a ground game. So I have Adam Randall, Clemson's running back, anytime touchdown.
So speaking of Haynes King, Trev, what are you staying away from in this particular matchup?
Right now, his over-under for passing yards is set at 188.5. He is such a good dual threat player, and it's very hit or miss how he'll be as a passer. He threw for 303 yards against Georgia, but then threw for 7 yards. You heard that correctly. 7 yards in a win over NC State and 32 in a win over Miami in 2024. He did throw for 143 yards in a win over Colorado in the season opener. Now, I will say they didn't really have to pass the ball that much because as a team, they ran for over 300 yards, which is pretty impressive. And he might also not play the whole game. Aaron Philo came in and lit the world on fire. Now, all things considered, they were not playing a good opponent last week. It wasn't great. I think they played Gardner Webb.
It sounds right. Yeah.
But Aaron Philo was also the quarterback that came in because Haynes King was banged up towards the tail end of last season. Aaron Philo was the kid that came in and led the team in passing yards against Miami in that big upset win at the end of last season. So I think we're going to see more of the same. I think Aaron Philo comes in throwing situations, and then they're just going to use Haynes King like a wildcat quarterback, running back type of situation. So I'm not touching Haynes King passing yards in this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. This is very similar to me from a stat standpoint as Riley Leonard was last year for Notre Dame. You never really knew what he was going to do, through the air. And I think I always said when we were given predictions and things of that nature, I was like, as long as Riley Leonard's over 200 yards of total offense and has a couple of touchdowns to his name, Notre Dame's going to win the ball game. Like that's just where I was always at. It's a very similar situation for Haynes King. Like I said before, he's going to get he's going to pick up some stats, whether it's on the ground, whether it's through the air. That's a little bit too hit or miss for me as well. This is an easy stay away. I don't think I would go with Haynes King's passing yards really ever because he wants to run the football. And that could take away the fact that he's got a guy running open or, whatever the case may be. He may tuck it and run because he sees an opening. I just don't like it. It's not something that I would touch. And so I would stay as far away from that one as possible as well. How about game 2, Trev?
Game 2, we're taking a trip down to the SEC. Georgia, the number 6 team in the country, is traveling down to Knoxville to take on the 15th ranked Tennessee Volunteers. Not going to spend too much time on the big 3 because it may or may not come back up later in the show. But right now, Georgia is favored in this game. They're 4.5-point favorites, and the over-under is set at 49.5. But this is a big matchup, Vince. These are 2 teams that we just don't really know a whole lot about yet.
It's fair.
Tennessee, the one certain for Tennessee is their offense is on fire right now. They played I think they played East Tennessee State last week, but they had like 740 total yards of offense in that game. Wow. Yeah. Yep. They took on Syracuse in the season opener on a neutral site. And they handled Syracuse on offense. But here's the thing, Georgia, we just don't know where they're at either. Offensively, don't know what they're supposed to look like. They played Marshall, and then they played Austin Peay. The thing we know is this matchup is going to be between Tennessee's offense in Georgia's defense. And I think that's going to be really, really interesting to follow. But this one's going to be tough.
I still can't get over all the orange that was in the stands for Tennessee and Syracuse. Thank goodness we are beyond that game. But no, this is a good one. Nice top 15 matchup at Tennessee. Should be a lot of fun to watch. Should be a nice, I think this is a 3:30 game, if I remember off the top of my head. So a nice afternoon game to get after. So like this game a lot. What are two, or give me a one player prop that you're looking at in this game, Trev?
One that I really like is Joey Aguilar, the quarterback for Tennessee. His over-under for rushing yards is set at 10.5. He rushed for 34 yards in the season opener against Syracuse. Now, I understand what they're doing. They're accounting for Georgia's pass rush here because in college, sacks go against rushing yards for quarterbacks, and I totally get that. But they've only had 3 sacks in 2 games against Marshall and Austin Peay. And once you account for what Joey Aguilar was able to do with his legs against Syracuse in the season opener, I really, really like his over at 10.5. Now, I could learn very quickly. Maybe I should take a page out of my Rocco Becht book and stop betting on quarterbacks over in rushing yards in college, but 10.5 seems very, very juicy. And yeah. I'm a big fan of it. So I like Joey Aguilar there.
And you like the rushing yards in this game in general. That's where you're going to go with your second player prop.
It is. Nate Frazier, the starting running back for Georgia. His over-under right now is set at 51.5. Schematically, Georgia needs to find a way to run the football again. When we watched this team, this program under Kirby Smart, when they were at their peak, I think back to 2017 in that insane Rose Bowl against Oklahoma State. Nick Chubb and Sony Michel tore apart Oklahoma's defense. Then on their national championship runs in 21 and 22, when they went back-to-back, they had a really good rushing offense. They didn't have a single running back over 1,000 yards, but it was by committee. They had a running back at 800 and then one at 650 and then one at 450 and then one at 4. And so Georgia needs to get back to running the football and being who they are. Tennessee gave up 90 rushing yards to Yassine Willis, Syracuse's starting running back. They also gave up 3 rushing touchdowns to Yassine Willis. That paired with Georgia looking to reestablish the run game and their dominance on the ground, I really like Nate Frazier, their RB1 in the backfield, to get over 51 rushing yards in this one.
One that we're going to stay away from, Trev. Gunnar Stockton is still a giant question mark at quarterback for Georgia, in my opinion. His over-under passing touchdowns is set at 1.5. So are you confident that he's going to hit 2? Probably not, because he only has 2 passing touchdowns on the season in 2 games. And Tennessee's secondary is the strength of their defense. It's not a combination that we like. It's not something that I would put a whole lot down on. With Gunnar Stockton throwing for 1.5. As you mentioned before, we do think that Georgia is going to try to establish the run game, which is going to limit the opportunities for Gunnar Stockton to throw the football around, especially in the red zone. I would stay very far away from his over under 1.5 passing touchdowns. How about game number 3? Trev, we got a familiar team here to Notre Dame fans, USF and Miami.
We do. The number 18 USF Bulls, right?
Yes, they
USF
are the Bulls. Yep.
Bang. Look at us. On the road against the number 5 Miami Hurricanes. Now, this one is interesting. The big 3, Miami is favored in this game, but they are 17.5-point favorites over USF. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked that that's where the line was set, considering USF went on the road in the swamp, beat Florida by 2, and absolutely annihilated Boise State in the season opener. USF is 2-0 against ranked opponents.
Yeah.
I was not expecting the line to be set here. The over-under is set at 57.5, so they think there's going to be some points scored in this game as well. But it's not my dog of the week, spoiler. It's not my lock of the week, spoiler. But I would be very, very tempted, if I were a bettor, to take USF to cover here, because that one's real juicy.
I honestly don't like the over-under set as high as it is either, if I'm being honest. I think it's probably going to end up lower than that. I'm not sure. Look, Miami put up 27 against Notre Dame, and I would have told you I would not have expected that, but they did. And, they can score. I just don't know if they're going to score in bunches like that. There's too many question marks about Miami still for me, based on what I saw watching the Notre Dame game. And then really, you don't really get anything out of last week's game. So 57.5 seems like a large number. So at the moment, as I'm looking at this, I want to take the under there. So just throwing that out there. But let's get to some player props. What's the first one that you're thinking about?
Real quick, I also don't blame you because it looks like, once again, down in Miami, it's going to be raining.
Well, there you go. Even better.
And that's another one. Weather is something that I always forget to factor in when looking at some of these over-unders. Always is. But 2 player props. I'm going back to Byron Brown, the quarterback for USF. Now, he's another dual threat guy. I like his passing plus rushing yards. It's set at 240.5. The over hit in his first 2 games. He had 253 passing plus rushing yards in the opener against Boise State. And then he did it one better. And against Florida, a ranked SEC team down in the swamp, he had 329 passing plus rushing yards in week 2. He's a dual threat guy. And I really, really think that he's going to have to be all of what he was against Florida if they want to get a top 5 upset. And if UCF is able to upset Miami, I think we're going to go back and look at Byron Brown's performance as a passer and as a runner.
That's a brave one, but the numbers back it up. So it makes a lot of sense. So I think that's a really interesting one. Second player prop here, we're looking at Malachi Toney. And when we first sat down, this was one that wasn't out yet. Is it still the case? He does not have any props out? I'm
going and looking it up right now, and it's still weird that it isn't. No, no, he's still not one of the receivers you can bet on. Now,
really,
some betting services are a little weird when it comes to player props because some will get thrown in there hours before kickoff. But right. Malachi Toney is a slot receiver. He's kind of not to the same degree because he doesn't have the highlight plays, but he is talked about by some, especially down in those residents of South Florida, amongst the likes of guys like Ryan Williams, because I believe Malachi Toney reclassified. He's 17 years old.
Correct. He should be a senior in high school right now.
He should. And unfortunately, he was the one receiver. I mean, yes, CJ Daniels had that amazing catch. I think it was played poorly. It's a conversation for a different day, different show.
We've already had that one.
But Malachi Toney was the slot receiver that ate Notre Dame alive. He had 6 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown against Notre Dame and followed that up with a 6-reception, 80-yard performance against Bethune-Cookman. Look, his line isn't out right now. But if I'm keeping an eye on this one, if it comes in anywhere around that 50 to 60 range, I would really, really, really look into taking his over because that kid's hot right now.
Yep. And he's a tough matchup in the slot. And so it really depends on how you want to play it. If you're going to play off and you're going to play zone, he's going to torch you. Mm-hmm. And so, Notre Dame found that out the hard way. Obviously, Bethune-Cookman couldn't keep up, and that's not overly surprising anyway. So, yeah, I would be very, very, very willing to do that. And he's becoming a very favorite target as well for Carson Beck with 12 receptions in 2 games. So when that's the case, when a quarterback has a nice security blanket of a guy in the slot who it's just an easy pitch and catch, which the vast majority of Carson Beck's throws were against Notre Dame, and a lot of them went to Toney. So yeah, this is one that I would look at as well. What are you staying away from in this game?
Honestly, I'm staying away from Mark Fletcher's over under rushing yards. It's set at 74.5. USF held Boise State rushers, every running back that touched the ball, to under 45 yards. Now, Jaden Baugh for Florida rushed for 93. But then I go and look at what Fletcher's done. Fletcher went for over 70 once this year and got 86 against Bethune-Cookman. I'm not saying that he won't hit it. It's just more of an unknown. I always get really nervous betting around running backs over under, especially when it's by committee. They have Mark Fletcher, they have Jordan Lyle, they have Shamar Brown. I just don't know if it'll hit. Would it surprise me if it did? No, not really. But I think USF's rushing defense is a little bit better than what some may think that it is. And I think that they're going to do a lot of rotating between him and Shamar Brown. That's what we saw when they played Notre Dame as well. So I'm staying away from that one.
That's fair. We got one final game to talk about, at least in this segment. It's game number 4, number 16. Texas A&M travels up north to number 8, Notre Dame.
This one is another big one. It's a top 20 matchup, night game in South Bend. And for whatever reason, it just feels like Notre Dame is only ever going to play top 20 opponents at night. And it's just going to give me heart attacks for the rest of my life. Vince, it's exhausting. But the big 3 for this game, Notre Dame is favored in this game. Spread is set at -6.5 in favor of the Fighting Irish. And the over-under is set at 49.5. Vince, You know how we do it. 2-player props. What's
Yep.
the first one that you like?
Well, we have gone to this well before, and I have no reason why we can't go to this well again. Malachi Fields is set at 40.5 receiving yards. He's played 25 games since the start of the 23 season. He's gone over 40 yards in 21 of them. So only 4 times did he not hit the 40-yard mark. He had 48 yards in the season opener against Miami. That's an absolute lock. We know CJ Carr loves himself some Malachi Fields, and he's going to throw him the football. And I think this is a lock. This is a no-brainer. Take Malachi Fields over 40.5. I'm surprised this number is as low as it is. I took Malachi Fields on a different betting service. My bad. And it was set at 50 against Miami. Did not hit, obviously. But 40.5. I know, right? 40.5 is a good number, though. Take it. Take it and run.
Until Vegas starts to pick up what Malachi Fields means to this offense, I'm going to be riding the Malachi Fields train for quite some time. I mean, and he's going to be matched up against Will Lee, which is Texas A&M's number 1 corner. Will Lee was also matched up against Bo Collins, Notre Dame's boundary receiver, when they played last year, and Bo Collins ended the game with 62 yards. So if you even wanted to get a little juicy with it and you want to take his alternate receiving yards and set it around somewhere 50, I think that'd be a good one too, because I think that's a really, really good pick. Really good pick.
Another player prop, Trev, is one I know you like, and I like it. I like it as well. Hit me.
CJ Carr's passing yards set at over 205.5. He went for 221 in his first career start on the road against Miami in a hostile environment, the number 10 team in the country. I think Texas A&M will sell out to stop the run. I do, because this is a team that watched what Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price did to him. Carr's going to have to be efficient over the middle and down the field, though. I'll say that. It can't be one of those. You can't dink and dunk this defense to death. You can't just sit back and rely on RPO screens the entire game. They're going to have to find a way to attack the middle of the field. I think they get that done at home. And look, we're talking about a player who rushed or passed for 221 rushing, or good night, threw for 221 yards last game, and that was with Jaden Greathouse catching 0 passes. It's in a good spot to be. I think he covers the 205. I do.
I like it. I think they're going to allow him to open it up a little bit more. They're going to have to. You can't keep the training wheels on this kid much longer. You're going to have to stretch the football field. You're going to have to do certain things, and the stats back it up. He did well stretching the field, throwing the ball beyond 10 yards, beyond 20 yards, and so they've got to allow him to do that. So I like this over 205. I think he gets there fairly easily, to be honest with you. But we'll see how it goes. But I like CJ Carr. What's one that you're staying away from here?
I'm staying away from the over-under at this game. It's set at 49.5. Look, home openers, as much as this pains me to say, home openers for Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman haven't been great. But at the same light, road openers for Texas A&M have been split. In Notre Dame's home openers, they scored 21 against Marshall in 2022, where they lost. They scored 56 in 2023, but that was against Tennessee State, the first FCS team that they've played in program history.
First and only.
And last year, as we know, they scored 14 points in their home opener against Northern Illinois. And then last season, this game ended on the road 23-13. Now, I do think that this is going to be a little bit more high scoring. I do. And we actually did our game predictions for this earlier on the Irish Breakdown podcast. And I believe my over-under for this game, I would end up taking the over. But I'm just not confident in it because I have to see it. I don't know what Texas A&M's offense is going to look like when it's not going up against UTSA and Utah State. In the same light, I don't know what Notre Dame's defense is going to look like because the only sample size we had is against now the number 5 team in the country. And so I'm not touching this. I'm staying away from it because I could see it going one of either way.
Agreed. It's a kind of a scary number because there's just too many question marks about this game. But it's going to be fun to watch anyway, so make sure you tune in 7:30. And then, of course, make sure you tune in for the post-game show immediately following over on our sister station, Irish Breakdown. You definitely want to check that one out.
Sure will. I already have my caffeine ready for that one, Vince.
Better start caffeining up now, my man. All right. So, and we don't have an extra day. It's not over Labor Day either. So we gotta get right here pretty quickly because we all got to go to work on Monday. But anyway, time for my favorite segment of the night. It is locks and drops. And we've got some good ones here for you, folks. So, Trev, you are batting leadoff for us this week. What is your lock of the week?
Lock of the week is Boston College minus 13.5 versus Stanford. look, Stanford, as crazy as this is, I think is going to find a way to be worse than what they were last year.
Oh, wow.
Stanford lost to Hawaii 23-20 in the season opener and lost to BYU 27-3 last week. In that same amount of time, Boston College dropped 66 on Fordham and 40 on the road against Michigan State in an overtime loss. Stanford has yet to throw a passing touchdown. And if you're wondering if they have a plethora of rushing touchdowns, they don't. They have one offensive touchdown on the season, Vince.
Wow.
Yep. They have one offensive touchdown on the season.
I don't even know what to say to that because that is so poor. That's so bad.
Yep. Because when I looked at their season stats, I was like, okay. Maybe they struggle throwing. They got Frank Reich, who's an NFL coach.
Right.
Maybe just the passing system is a little bit too complicated, and they're relying on their running back room to get them going. And that unfortunately, Micah Ford has one rushing touchdown on the season, and that is it. Part of the reasons for their struggle, their quarterback, Ben Goldbranson, who's a 6-year senior, has a QBR of 11.
Sorry, Ben.
Yep.
I'll try to contain myself moving forward. That number is actually lower than the PFF pass blocking grade of Anthony Knapp, which is hard to do. Sorry.
So Ben Goldbranson is just not it, and it kind of begs the question: when is Andrew Luck and Frank Reich going to pull the trigger and put in Elijah Brown? Because by default, there's no way that he could play worse. I have Boston College clearing this, honestly, relatively easy. I understand it's on the road. The biggest thing working in Stanford's favor, in my opinion, for this game is the fact that Boston College has to go from Boston to Stanford for this game. And look, Boston College has been cooking. Quarterback Dylan Lonergan, the Alabama transfer, has been absolutely throwing dimes out there. I have Boston College, my lock of the week, at minus 13.5.
I think that's actually a really good one, and I do like what Lonergan has been doing. He's made BC a very interesting team this year. I'll just say that. I did watch a lot of the game between Boston College and Michigan State last week, as my father-in-law is a Michigan State fan. And so I kind of have to watch, so I have something to talk about when the two of us are, chatting it up.
Yeah.
So, I was actually very impressed with the play of Dylan Lonergan last week. He was putting up some numbers, and he was leading his team in a very, very good way. So I was very impressed by that.
Yeah, he's been dealing, man. Against Michigan State, he went 34-45 for 390 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, there you go. So, he's definitely somebody to keep your eye on, and we might be looking at him under some individual stats or individual props moving forward. So keep your eye on that. My lock of the week, Trev, I'm going back to the Clemson-Georgia Tech game. And the spread is minus 3.5. The money line is set at minus 154, which is not terrible. You can still make some money at minus 154, taking Clemson on the money line. Clemson lost to LSU in week 0. Didn't look good against Troy the following week, but got the W. I can forgive a sleepwalk against an inferior opponent the week after a big loss. I get it. Georgia Tech is not inferior. This game is on the road. The Jackets will have Clemson's attention for sure. Georgia Tech's a really good team. They're a good team, but I do still think that Clemson is better. So my lock is to take Clemson on the money line. It's minus 154. Again, not terrible. You can still make some money there. I would be very tempted to take the points at minus 3.5 or give the points, excuse me. I'm not ready to lock that one. I'm ready to lock the money line, but don't be afraid to give the 3.5. I like Clemson in this game as kind of a bounce back game for them and to prove that they're still the best team in the ACC.
That's interesting. I like that, Vince. I like that. Earlier today, Brian and I both picked Georgia Tech in the upset.
See?
So we'll be texting about it. But listen,
go, baby.
Listen, you're on a heater right now. Maybe we should be listening to the dean.
Hey, time will tell. Time will tell. And I'm ready I've got my hat right here, and I'm ready to put it in my hand. Hat in hand. That I was wrong, but hey, it's okay. I'm ready. So what's your drop of the week? What are you staying away from?
I'm not touching the big three in the Georgia-Tennessee game. I just don't know who either of these teams are yet, man. Georgia looked good against Marshall, but then struggled against Austin Peay. Tennessee's offense has looked really good this year, and their win over Syracuse looked really, really good until UConn took Syracuse to overtime. UConn was a 9-win football team last year. I respect what they're doing, but you kind of look at sometimes it just comes down to the Jimmies and the Joes, and I don't think that it's a mystery why Fran Brown had his team running sprints after the overtime game against UConn, because as good of a football team as that is, shouldn't take overtime to beat UConn at home. And then obviously they destroyed East Tennessee State, talking about the Vols here. So I just don't trust it. Just a refresher, the line is set at Georgia at -4.5. Their money line is -184, and the over-under set at 49.5. I just don't feel confident going in any direction with these. I'm not touching it. Makes
sense. I'm staying away from the Kansas State at Arizona game because, listen, I just don't know who Kansas State is. I don't even know if Kansas State knows who Kansas State is right now. I mean, they went from being one of the favorites to winning the Big 12, and now they're a 1-2 football team going on the road to face an undefeated Arizona team in conference. Plus Arizona. Now, granted, one of those games was against a bit of a cupcake, but they put up 88 points in the last 2 weeks, so they can score, and they're at home, and they're going to want to take out Kansas State. I was tempted to take Arizona as my dog of the week, but it doesn't quite fit in the criteria because I believe Kansas State is favored by like 1.5 or 2.5, something along those lines. So it doesn't quite fit the criteria for a dog of the week. I kind of like Arizona straight up on the money line here, but it's just way too close. I don't know anything about Kansas State, and I'm just staying away from it. Just stay away from anything Kansas State related right now.
Until they get some stuff figured out, I do not blame you in the slightest.
Yeah. All right, my favorite category here, Trevor. Dogs of the week, baby. Where are you going?
For a bounce back, I'm going back to old trusty New Mexico. The New Mexico Lobos. In week 1, I believe, I predicted them to cover their spread on the road against Michigan. And I'm going to predict them to do the same thing Friday night against UCLA. Right now, they're 15.5-point dogs. Look, UCLA is 0-2 with a 43-10 loss to Utah and a 30-23 loss to UNLV. Now, I know UNLV was really good last year. They lost a lot, including their head coach from last year, Barry Odom, who's now at Purdue. New Mexico lost to Michigan on the road by 17 in the Big House. I just don't see them losing by 16 to a UCLA team that is just not good this year. I understand that they have Nico and their head coach is going into year 2, but just when you watch UCLA play, they are not good. Not good. Our friend Stymie here said it best. UCLA is not good. Hot garbage. So
they're not good.
Not good. I'm taking New Mexico plus 15.5. That's my dog of the week, Vince.
We are getting to a place where I have 2 written down, and I'm still not 100% sure where I want to go with this one. I'm going to start with the Texas game. All right, that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with UTEP at Texas. Texas is laying 40.5 points to the Miners of UTEP. Here's the thing. UTEP can run the football. Now, how much success they're going to have against Texas running the football remains to be seen. They had a good day running the football against Texas A&M. We've talked about that kind of ad nauseum when we're talking about Texas A&M coming to play Notre Dame. UTEP had some success running the football. That's how you shorten a game, not allow a bunch of points. That's kind of how I see this one going. I'm not saying UTEP's going to beat Texas. What I am saying, though, is 40.5 is a lot of points if the clock is running, they're running the football, they're possessing the football, those kind of things. Look, Texas is going to score. They're going to, put points on the board. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely. I just don't think that they're going to win by 40.5. Plus, I don't think Steve Sarkisian is going to run it up either. So when given the opportunity, unlike another coach that we know who predominantly wears red and white, I don't think he's going to run up the score against an in-state opponent who's an inferior opponent. Take the Miners plus the 40.5. That's my official dog of the week.
Okay.
I'm going to give you another one. This is not going to be official, okay? So I don't want it to go, even if I win it, I don't want it to go toward my record, okay? But I just want to throw it out there because I did just throw shade at Kurt Signetti saying that he likes to run up the score. But what I will say is the fact that they are favored by just shy of 50 points against Indiana State is a big number. Now, Indiana State's an FCS team. I understand that, Cignetti's going to want to run it up. All of those things. I actually watched a little bit of Indiana State's first game, believe it or not, because there's a common opponent with Indiana State and Hillsdale. And so I watched that film. I watched the coach's copy. Indiana State's not a terrible football team. Now, going on the road, obviously, to Bloomington as a 1AA, all of those things. I get it. Maybe IU comes out and blows them up or whatever, but that's one that I would pay attention to. I was very tempted to take Indiana State and the 48.5 points that are being laid. But my official pick is UTEP at Texas.
Vince showing some faith in the Sycamores, huh?
The Sycamores, baby. Yeah, absolutely. The weirdest stadium, by the way, in my personal opinion. Went down there for an official visit, and they have a giant, I don't know if you've ever been down there. Have you ever been down there, Trev?
I took a visit there when I was in high school.
Okay, so there you go. The giant homestands, like old school concrete, like the whole deal. The other side, nothing. There are no stands on the other side. You have to sit on the home side. There's just grass over on the other side. It's very strange. Very strange. But hey, Indiana State, come on, baby. Do it for me. Stay within that 48.5. You got this. Got this.
If you get it right, we'll have to put a little asterisk next to your dog of the week.
I'm going to be watching.
We'll put in parentheses.
That's right.
Also 1-0.
Yes.
Shout out to the Sycamores. I love it.
That's right. And it's going to be tomorrow, I believe. I think that's a Friday night game.
Okay.
Actually, I think, if I remember correctly. So, keep an eye on the old Sycamores from Indiana State.
Love it. Well, listen, guys, that's going to do it for the 4th edition of the Spread Option here on the CFB Nation podcast. Live chat was awesome tonight, guys. Throwing in your picks, telling us what you were thinking. I love it. I love it a lot. Maybe as this goes on, maybe we do like a little, if we have time, maybe a little bit of a mailbag at the end, because I like what some of these people have in here. Got some questions.
Nice.
Got people putting in their predictions. So it's a lot of fun, man. A lot of stuff to come. But listen, Vince and I will be back again next Thursday to preview the upcoming games for, let's see, that'll be our 5th edition. So week 4 of the college football season. So it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. Make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Make sure you're subscribed to the CFB Nation podcast on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify podcasts. But again, we'll be back next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Anybody that loves betting, wants to get into it. Actually, wait a second.
Wednesday.
We're
going to be next Wednesday because I foolishly signed up to be a chaperone at my 5th graders camping trip. So I will be in the wilderness on Thursday night. So we're going to have the show on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. So a little bit off of our normal routine. But, make sure you're tuned in because we're going to do the same exact show, but we're just going to do it on Wednesday as opposed to Thursday. That should be the only conflict the rest of the way. I say that now, and then every Thursday is going to have a conflict. But right now, next week is our only conflict.
Well, regardless, we will be back next week. Have a good night. Have fun. Good luck this weekend. And we'll see you guys back here very soon on the CFB Nation podcast.